The galaxy had been at peace for 3,000 years. 12 powerful species ruled the stars together. They called themselves the Galactic Concord. They had stopped fighting long ago because they all agreed on one simple rule. No one would build weapons too powerful. No one would try to conquer the others. Peace was good for business, and business was good for everyone. But peace had made them soft. They had forgotten what real danger looked like. They had forgotten what it meant to fear. In the far corner of the galaxy, there was a small yellow star. Around this star, a blue planet slowly turned. The aliens had found this planet long ago. They sent drones to watch it. They studied the strange creatures that lived there. These creatures called themselves humans. The Watchers sent their reports back to the Concord. The humans were violent. They fought wars over land, over ideas, over things that made no sense. They killed each other by the millions. They built weapons and then used those weapons on their own kind. The Concord labeled the planet as dangerous, but primitive. These humans had not even left their own world yet. They were no threat to anyone except themselves. So the galaxy ignored Earth. They watched from far away and waited for the humans to destroy themselves. It seemed like only a matter of time. They were wrong. Admiral Tovan of the Helix Dominion was old. He had served the Concord for 200 years. He had seen many things, but he had never seen anything like the signal that appeared on his screen that morning. Something massive had just entered known space. It came from the direction of that primitive blue planet, and it was heading straight for the heart of the galaxy. Tovan's 4 hands trembled as he studied the readings. The object was 18 kilometers long. Its energy signature was off the charts. His sensors could not even fully scan it. Whatever materials it was made from, the Concord had never seen them before. "Get me the High Council," he ordered. Now, far away, on the bridge of that massive object, a human man stood with his hands behind his back. His name was Park Do-hyun, and he was the captain of the Battleship Hammer of Dawn. Do-hyun was 52 years old. His hair was gray at the temples, and his face carried the lines of a man who had spent his whole life preparing for this moment. He looked out at the stars through the main viewport and felt a strange calm. Behind him, his crew worked at their stations. They were the best Earth had to offer. Scientists, soldiers, engineers. All of them had trained for years. All of them knew what was at stake. Lieutenant Kim Yuna looked up from her console. She was young, only 28, but she had earned her place on this ship. "Captain, we have cleared the outer boundary. We are now in Concord space." Dawn nodded slowly. "How long until they detect us?" "They already have, sir. I am picking up hundreds of signals. They are all focused on us." Commander Lee Jisoo stepped forward. She was Do-hyun's second in command and his oldest friend. They had served together for 20 years. "The moment we have been waiting for," she said quietly. "Yes." Do-hyun turned to face his crew. "Listen carefully, everyone. For 200 years, humanity has kept this ship secret. We built it in the asteroid belt, hidden from alien eyes. We let them think we were primitives. We let them watch us fight and struggle and suffer. And all that time, we were preparing." He paused, looking at each face in turn. "The aliens think they know us. They think we are violent savages who cannot stop killing each other. And yes, we are violent. We have done terrible things to ourselves. But they missed something important. Every time we fell, we got back up. Every time we broke ourselves, we rebuilt. That is what humans do. We survive." Chief Engineer Choi Sun-ho raised his hand. He was a large man with kind eyes and hands that could fix anything. "Sir, should I bring all systems online?" "Not yet. We are not here to start a fight. We are here to end one before it begins." Do-hyun turned back to the viewport. "Lieutenant Kim, Open a channel. All frequencies. I want everyone to hear this. Yuna's fingers moved across her console. Channel open, sir. Do-hyun took a deep breath. Then he spoke the words that would change history. This is Captain Park Do-hyun of the Earth vessel Hammer of Dawn. We are representatives of humanity. We request an audience with the Galactic Concord. We come in peace, but we are prepared for war. The message traveled at the speed of light. It reached 1,000 worlds. Translators on every planet worked to understand the strange language. And when they finally understood, the galaxy went silent. On the Concorde Central Station, Delegate Voris of the Pallid Sphere watched the message play for the 5th time. His pale skin had turned even paler. "This cannot be real," he whispered. Our observers said they were still fighting each other. They had not even colonized their own moon. Intelligence Director Marvex floated beside him. The Starweaver was a creature of light and thought, and right now, his light was dim with worry. They were hiding, Delegate, for at least 2 centuries, perhaps longer. They knew we were watching. They let us see only what they wanted us to see. But why? Why would they do this? Marvex turned to look at the image of the Hammer of Dawn. It hung in space like a blade, dark and terrible and beautiful. Because they were afraid of us, he said slowly. And they decided that if we ever came for them, they would be ready. Varus felt something he had not felt in centuries. His hearts were beating too fast. His breath was coming too quick. It took him a moment to recognize the feeling. It was fear. Across the galaxy, 1,000 species felt the same thing. The humans had arrived, and nothing would ever be the same again. The emergency signal went out across the galaxy. Every leader, every admiral, every delegate dropped what they were doing and rushed to respond. In 3,000 years of peace, the Concorde had never called an emergency assembly. Now they called one for a single ship from a planet they had ignored for centuries. The High Council gathered in the Crystal Chamber, a massive room that floated in space at the center of Concorde territory. 12 species sent their representatives. They sat in a circle, each one more worried than the last. Delegate Voris spoke first. His voice was shaking. The ship is real. Our best sensors have confirmed it. 18 kilometers long. Weapons we cannot identify. Hull made from materials we have never seen. And it is still coming toward us. Admiral Tovan stood in the center of the circle. I have called for a defensive fleet. Ships from every member species. We currently have 4,000 vessels moving to intercept the human ship. 4,000 ships against one? Asked Representative Callis of the Deep Mines. That seems excessive. You have not seen the readings. Tovan pulled up a hologram. The Hammer of Dawn appeared before them, rotating slowly. Look at these energy signatures. A single shot from their main weapon could destroy a planet. Maybe more. 4,000 ships may not be enough. The chamber fell silent. They all stared at the human battleship. It looked like something from a nightmare. Dark metal. Sharp angles. Built for one purpose and one purpose only. War. How did this happen? Demanded Councillor Viorn of the Stone Walkers. We watched that planet for 500 years. Our drones reported every detail. They were supposed to be primitives. They fooled us, said Marvex simply. They knew we were watching. They let us see their wars, their failures, their weaknesses. But they hid their true progress. Somewhere in their system, hidden from our eyes, they built this ship in secret. For how long? 200 years, at least. Maybe longer. Viorn slammed his rocky fist on the table. 200 years. And our observers noticed nothing? The humans are clever, Marvex replied. More clever than we gave them credit for. They used their asteroid belt to hide the construction. They developed technology we did not know they had. And they waited. They waited until they were ready, and then they revealed themselves. On board the Hammer of Dawn, Captain Park Do-hyun watched the alien fleets gathering on his tactical display. Thousands of ships were forming a wall between him and the Concorde's center. They were small compared to his ship, but there were so many of them. Commander Lee Ji-soo stood beside him. "They're scared," she said. "Good. Fear makes people careful. Careful people make fewer mistakes." Weapons Officer Han Murray looked up from her station. She was a quiet woman with steady hands and cold eyes. "Sir, the alien ships are powering up their weapons. They are preparing to attack." Do-hyun did not seem worried. "How long until they are in range?" 3 hours. Then we have time." He turned to Navigator Baek Jun-ho. "Slow our approach. Let them gather. Let them see how many ships they need to feel safe." Jun-ho nodded. He was the youngest officer on the bridge, only 25, but he flew the ship like it was part of his own body. "Reducing speed, sir." The Hammer of Dawn slowed. It moved through space like a great beast in no hurry to reach its prey. And all around it, the alien fleets continued to grow. Back in the crystal chamber, the delegates were arguing. "We should attack now," said Admiral Toven, "before they get any closer. Our combined firepower might be enough to destroy them." "Might?" Voris shook his head. "We cannot risk a war based on might. We have not fought a real battle in 3,000 years. We do not even know if our weapons will work against that ship." "Then what do you suggest? We let them walk into our home and do whatever they want?" "I suggest we talk to them first. They said they came in peace. Perhaps they meant it." Toven laughed. It was not a happy sound. "You do not build a ship like that for peace. That is a weapon. The biggest weapon anyone has ever made. You do not make such a thing unless you plan to use it." Representative Callis raised a tentacle. "The Admiral has a point. But so does the delegate. We know nothing about these humans. We assumed they were savages because they fought each other. But perhaps their violence was preparation. Perhaps they were training themselves for something greater." "Training for what?" "For us." The words hung in the air. Every delegate felt a chill run through them. On the Hammer of Dawn, Medical Officer Shin Yoonji was reviewing data about the alien species. She was also the ship's expert on alien biology and culture. What she found worried her. "Captain," she said, "I have been studying the Concorde's history. They have not fought a real war in 3,000 years. Their weapons are mostly ceremonial. Their fleets are more for show than for combat." "I know," said Do-hyun. "That is why we cannot fire first. If we start this fight, we will win. But we will also become the monsters they already think we are." "And if they fire first?" Do-hyun's face was calm, but his eyes were hard. "Then we defend ourselves. And we make sure they never threaten Earth again." Yoonji looked at the wall of alien ships on the display. 4,000 vessels. Millions of lives. "I hope it does not come to that." "So do I." Do-hyun sat down in his captain's chair. "But hope is not a strategy. That is why we built this ship. Not because we wanted war. Because we knew that someday, someone might bring war to us. And when that day came, we wanted to be ready." The Hammer of Dawn continued its slow approach. The alien fleets continued to gather. And across the galaxy, billions of beings held their breath and waited to see what would happen next. The humans had arrived. And the galaxy would never be the same. The message from the Galactic Concorde arrived exactly 12 hours after the Hammer of Dawn entered their space. It was not a greeting. It was not an invitation to talk. It was a demand that Lieutenant Kim Yuna read it aloud to the bridge crew. "The Galactic Concorde hereby declares the human vessel known as Hammer of Dawn to be an illegal threat to galactic peace. You have 12 hours to power down all weapons and surrender your ship to Concorde Authority. Failure to comply will result in immediate military action. This is your only warning." The bridge was silent. Every officer looked at Captain Park Doyen, waiting for his response. Doyen stood slowly. His face showed no fear, no anger, just calm determination. So they have made their choice. They would rather threaten us than talk to us. Commander Lee Jasu stepped forward. "Sir, if they attack with their full fleet, even we might not survive. 4,000 ships is a lot of firepower. I know." Do-hyun walked to the main viewport. Outside, he could see the distant lights of the alien armada. So many ships. So much fear. "But we did not come here to surrender. We came here to be heard." He turned back to his crew. "Lieutenant Kim, open a channel. Same as before. All frequencies." Yuna nodded. "Channel open, sir." Do-hyun took a moment to gather his thoughts. Then he spoke, and his words reached every corner of the galaxy. "This is Captain Park Do-hyun of the Hammer of Dawn. We have received your demand for surrender. Our answer is no. We will not give up a ship we built to protect ourselves. We will not become slaves to a government that never asked us if we wanted to join." He paused, letting the words sink in. "But we understand your fear. You do not know us. You have watched us from far away and decided we are monsters. You see this ship and you imagine the worst. So let me show you something. Let me show you what this ship can do. Then you can decide if you still want to fight." On the crystal chamber, the delegates watched with wide eyes. Voris leaned forward. "What is he doing?" Admiral Toven checked his tactical display. "The human ship is moving. It is heading toward Sector 7. The dead zone." Sector 7 was empty space. There was nothing there except a single moon. A cold, dead rock with no life, no resources, no value to anyone. The Concorde had mapped it centuries ago and then forgotten about it. On the Hammer of Dawn, Do-hyun turned to his weapons officer. "Han Myre, target that moon." Myre's fingers moved across her console with practiced ease. "Target locked, sir." "Good. Fire the main cannon." 20% power. Myre hesitated for just a moment. 20%. Even at that level, she knew what would happen. Her finger pressed the firing button. The Hammer of Dawn shook as the main cannon fired. A beam of pure white light shot across space, faster than the eye could follow. It hit the moon with perfect accuracy, and then the moon was gone, not destroyed. Not broken into pieces. Gone. One moment it was there, a solid rock that had existed for billions of years. The next moment, there was nothing but expanding gas and dust. The moon had been erased from existence. Silence fell across every ship, every station, every world that was watching. Navigator Baek Junho checked his instruments twice before speaking. "Sir, the alien fleets are powering down their weapons." "All of them?" Do-hyun nodded. "Good." In the crystal chamber, Admiral Toven sat down heavily in his chair. His face had turned pale. His hands were shaking. "That was 20%, he whispered. "What could they do at full power?" No one answered. No one wanted to think about it. Delegate Voris was the first to recover. He pulled up his communication device with trembling fingers. "We need to send a new message. Not a demand this time. A request. We need to ask them to talk. You think they will listen?" Asked Counselor Viarn. "After we threatened to destroy them? I think we have no choice. Did you see what they just did? They destroyed a moon with 20% power. If they wanted to destroy our fleet, they could do it in seconds. If they wanted to destroy our worlds, we could not stop them." Voris swallowed hard. "We are alive right now because they are choosing not to kill us. That means they want something other than war. We need to find out what." On the Hammer of Dawn, Chief Engineer Choi Sun-ho let out a long breath. Well, that got their attention. Do-hyun almost smiled. That was the idea. Medical Officer Shin Yoonji looked worried. Captain, I hope you know what you are doing. We just showed them our power. Some of them will want to negotiate, but others will see us as an even bigger threat now. They might decide that they have to destroy us before we destroy them. I know the risk. Do-hyun sat back in his chair. But I also know human history. For thousands of years, we tried to make peace through weakness. We begged stronger nations not to hurt us. We trusted treaties and promises. And again, we were betrayed. The strong took what they wanted from the weak. He looked at the alien fleet on his display. So we learned. We learned that the only peace that lasts is peace backed by strength. We do not want to hurt anyone, but we will not let anyone hurt us either. And now they understand that. A new message arrived from the Concorde. Yuna read it quickly, and this time, her voice held a note of relief. Sir, they are requesting a meeting. They want to negotiate. They are offering neutral ground for talks. Do-hyun closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, the tension in his shoulders had eased just slightly. Send our acceptance. Tell them we will meet them wherever they want. And tell them that humanity is ready to talk. The message went out. Across the galaxy, beings who had been holding their breath finally let it go. There would be no war today. At least, not yet. But everyone knew that the real challenge was just beginning. The humans had proved their power. Now they had to prove something harder. They had to prove they could be trusted. The meeting place was an old space station at the edge of Concorde territory. It had been abandoned for centuries, left to drift in the darkness between stars. Now it was full of light and life again, as both sides prepared for the most important negotiation in galactic history. Captain Park Do-hyun brought only 3 officers with him. Commander Lee Ji-soo walked at his right side, her eyes scanning every corner for danger. Lieutenant Kim Yuna carried a small translation device, though they had already confirmed that both sides could understand each other. Medical Officer Shin Yoonji came as their expert on alien cultures, but also because Do-hyun trusted her judgment more than almost anyone else. The Concorde sent 12 delegates, 1 from each ruling species. They also brought something else, something Do-hyun had not expected. Telepaths, whispered Yoonji as they entered the main chamber. At least 3 of them. They will try to read our minds. They want to know if we are lying. Do-hyun nodded slightly. Let them try. We have nothing to hide. The chamber was round, with a large table in the center. The human delegation took one side. The alien delegates took the other. For a long moment, no one spoke. They simply looked at each other, measuring, wondering. Finally, Delegate Voris broke the silence. Thank you for agreeing to meet with us. After our unfortunate demand, we were not sure you would accept. We came here to talk, said Do-hyun. That has not changed. Yes, well. Voris shifted uncomfortably. Let us begin with the obvious question. Why did you build that ship? Why did you hide for so long? Why did you hide for so long? What do you want from us? Do-hyun had prepared for this question. He had practiced his answer 100 times. But now, facing these alien beings who held the fate of his world in their hands, he decided to speak from his heart instead. 500 years ago, your drones found our planet. You watched us. You studied us. You saw our wars, our hatred, our cruelty. And you decided we were too dangerous to contact, too violent to join your civilization. He paused, looking at each delegate in turn. You were right. We were violent. We still are. Humans have a darkness inside us that we have never been able to completely remove. We fight. We kill. We destroy. That is part of who we are. The delegates exchanged nervous glances. This was not what they had expected to hear. But that is not all we are. Do-hyun leaned forward. For every war we fought, we also built peace. For every city we destroyed, we built 10 more. Every time we fell into darkness, we found our way back to the light. That is the other part of being human. We never give up. We never stop trying to be better. Empath Cerise of the Mind Collective had been trying to read the human captain since he entered the room. Now she spoke for the first time, her voice filled with confusion. Your emotions make no sense. I can feel fear in you, but also courage. Anger, but also hope. Hatred, but also love. These feelings should cancel each other out. How can you hold them all at once? Jisoo smiled slightly. We call that being human. We do not choose between our feelings. We carry them all together. It must be exhausting. Sometimes. But it also makes us strong. We know what it means to be afraid and still act. We know what it means to hate and still forgive. We have practiced these things on each other for 10,000 years. Admiral Toven had been silent until now. He stood slowly, his forearms crossed over his chest. Pretty words. But they do not answer the real question. You built a weapon that can destroy worlds. You hid it for 200 years. And then you came here and showed us what it could do. That is not the action of a peaceful species. That is a threat. Do-hyun met his gaze without flinching. You are right. It was a threat, but not the kind you think. He pulled up a hologram showing Earth's history. Images of war, yes, but also of something else. Treaties being signed. Enemies shaking hands. Cities being rebuilt after destruction. Every time humanity faced extinction, it was because we were weak. When we trusted others to protect us, they betrayed us. When we put down our weapons, our enemies picked theirs up. We learned, over thousands of years, that peace only comes to those strong enough to defend it. He pointed at the image of the Hammer of Dawn. We built this ship because we detected your observation drones. We knew you were watching us. And we did not know what you planned to do. Would you leave us alone? Would you try to conquer us? Would you decide we were too dangerous and destroy us before we could spread beyond our world? The delegates shifted uncomfortably. They all knew the option had been discussed. We could not take that chance, Do-hyun continued. So we prepared. We built in secret. We waited until we were ready. And then we came here. Not to conquer, but to negotiate from a position of strength. Because we learned long ago that the weak do not get to negotiate. They only get to beg. Shin Yoonji stepped forward. Let me be clear about something. We did not build the Hammer of Dawn to destroy your worlds. We built it so that no one could destroy ours. There is a difference. A small one, said Counselor Varen. No, a very large one. Yoonji pulled up more images. Look at our history. Every time humanity gained a powerful weapon, we had a choice. Use it to conquer others, or use it to protect ourselves. Sometimes we chose wrong. Sometimes we caused terrible destruction. But over time, more and more of us chose protection over conquest. That is the direction we are moving. Slowly, painfully, but steadily. Voris leaned back in his chair. His fear had not gone away, but something else was growing alongside it. Something like respect. What exactly do you want? He asked. Do-hyun's answer was simple. A seat at the table. Equal membership in the Concord. The same rights and responsibilities as any other species. Nothing more, nothing less. And if we refuse, then we go home. We continue building. We grow stronger. And in another century or two, we come back with a fleet instead of a single ship. Do-hyun's voice was calm but firm. We would rather be your allies than your enemies. But we will not be your victims. That choice was made long before I was born. The delegates looked at each other. For 3,000 years, they had maintained peace through balance. No single species was allowed to become too powerful. And now these humans had shattered that balance completely. But perhaps, Varus thought, that was not entirely a bad thing. Perhaps the galaxy had grown too comfortable, too soft. Perhaps they needed something to wake them up. "We will need to discuss this among ourselves," he said finally. "But I think we can find a way forward." Dawn nodded. "Take all the time you need. We have waited 200 years. We can wait a little longer." The meeting ended. Both sides returned to their ships. And across the galaxy, beings began to realize that the universe had just gotten a lot more interesting. The vote took 3 days. 3 days of arguments, debates, and fear. Some delegates wanted to reject humanity completely. Others wanted to accept them with open arms. Most were somewhere in between, torn between terror and curiosity. In the end, the vote was unanimous. Not because they all agreed. Not because they trusted the humans, but because they understood one simple truth. Humanity was coming whether they liked it or not. It was better to have them inside the Concord than outside it. The announcement was broadcast across every world in the galaxy. Earth had been granted full membership in the Galactic Concord. Humans would have the same rights as every other species. They would be bound by the same laws. They would share in the same responsibilities. And the Hammer of Dawn would be allowed to remain. Captain Park Doing received the news on the bridge of his ship. His crew gathered around him, their faces showing a mixture of relief and joy. Some had tears in their eyes. They had spent their entire lives preparing for this moment. Now it had finally arrived. "We did it," whispered Lieutenant Kim Yuna. "We actually did it." Do-hyun nodded slowly. "We did. But this is not the end. This is just the beginning." Commander Lee Jisoo stood at his side. "What happens now?" "Now comes the hard part. We have shown them our strength. Next, we have to show them who we really are." He looked at his crew, these brave men and women who had followed him into the unknown. "We have to prove that we are more than warriors, more than builders of weapons. We have to show them the best of humanity." The Hammer of Dawn turned and began its long journey back to Earth. Behind it, the alien fleet slowly dispersed. The crisis was over, but the real work was just starting. 6 months later, Do-hyun stood at the viewport of his ship as it entered Earth orbit. The planet hung below them, blue and green and impossibly beautiful. After months in deep space, surrounded by alien stars, it was the most wonderful sight he had ever seen. Yuna joined him at the viewport. She was smiling, but there were questions in her eyes. "Do you think they will ever stop fearing us?" Do-hyun considered the question carefully. "No, I do not think they will. Not completely. And perhaps that is not a bad thing. Why? Fear can be useful. It keeps them honest. It stops them from trying things they might have tried if we had arrived weak and hopeful." He paused, watching a cloud drift across the Pacific Ocean. "But fear is only the beginning. Over time, we will give them other reasons to respect us." "Like what?" "Like showing them our art, our music, our stories. Sharing our science and learning from theirs. Building friendships with species we have never met. Proving, day by day and year by year, that we can be trusted." Chief Engineer Choi Sun-ho approached them with a datapad. "Captain, we are receiving transmissions from 3 different Concord species. They are requesting cultural exchanges. They want to send ambassadors to Earth." Do-hyun took the datapad and scanned the messages. Despite everything, he found himself smiling. "Already? I expected them to wait at least a year before approaching us." "It seems they are curious," said Sun-ho. "They want to understand us. Or at least, some of them do." Medical Officer Shin Yoonji had been listening nearby. "That is a good sign. Curiosity is the first step toward friendship. If they want to understand us, that means they are willing to see us as something other than a threat. Some of them, corrected Jisoo. Others will still see us as enemies. We need to be careful. We will be. Dahyun handed the datapad back to Sanho. But we cannot let fear control us, either. We spent 200 years hiding, preparing for the worst. Now it is time to hope for the best. The Hammer of Dawn settled into orbit around Earth. Below them, billions of humans went about their daily lives, most of them unaware of how close the galaxy had come to war. They would learn soon enough. The news was already spreading across the planet. Humanity was no longer alone. That night, Do-hyun returned to his quarters and sat by the window. Earth filled his view, a jewel of life in the darkness of space. He thought about everything that had happened. The years of preparation. The moment of revelation. The tense negotiations. The final vote. They had done what seemed impossible. They had taken their place among the stars not as conquerors, but as equals. Not through violence, but through strength combined with wisdom. But he also thought about the future. There would be challenges ahead. Some species would never accept humanity. Some would try to use them. Some would fear them no matter what they did. The road ahead was long and uncertain, yet Do-hyun felt something he had not felt in years. Hope. Real hope. Not the desperate hope of a trapped animal, but the steady hope of someone who knows that the worst is over and better days are coming. His communicator buzzed. It was a message from Earth's government, thanking him for his service and inviting him to a ceremony in his honor. He smiled and set the device aside. There would be time for ceremonies later. Right now, he just wanted to look at his homeworld and remember why he had fought so hard to protect it. The next morning, the first alien ambassadors began their journey to Earth. They were nervous, uncertain of what they would find. They expected to meet warriors, builders of terrible weapons, creatures of violence and fear. Instead, they found something unexpected. They found humans laughing and crying, arguing and making up, creating art and building cities and dreaming of the future. They found a species that was messy, contradictory, and endlessly surprising. They found hope. And slowly, carefully, the galaxy began to change. Fear gave way to curiosity. Curiosity gave way to understanding. Understanding gave way to friendship. It would take generations, but the process had begun. Humanity had arrived. And the stars would never be the same again. The end.